Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Anchors of Hope. This is a third episode in as many weeks, sending love and light from everyone here in Israel and around the world. My talks are not necessarily about politics, and I'm hoping nothing that causes any sort of rifts or ill feelings. And the contrary, I'm interested in talking about better days that are coming, living consciously, being open to the universe and peeling away at the distractions so that we can live our fullest selves in this world. And so I want to start off with a quote that's been living in my head for some time now. It's actually the inspiration for the title of this podcast, Anchors of Hope, and it's from the Israeli novelist David Grossman, who once said, "Hope can be seen as a kind of anchor which is thrown out of a suffocated and desperate existence towards a freer and better future, towards a reality that does not yet exist, most of which is made of the heart's wishes. From imagination, the anchor is thrown and clings to the ground of the future. The individual and sometimes an entire society begin to pull themselves towards it." Read that again with me, nice and clear. Hope isn't passive waiting. It's an anchor you throw into an imagined future. And then there's the hard part. You got to do the work. You got to pull yourself towards it. And that changes everything. So I want to talk about the difference between hope and optimism, because I think most of us get this wrong, and it matters more than we realize. Optimism is a spectator sport. It's sitting back and believing things will somehow work themselves out. That someone else is handling it. That positive outcomes will just somehow arrive. Being optimistic. Hope, on the other hand, is completely different. Hope is the active conviction that you can take action towards a desired result. And even when there are zero guarantees, even when the odds look terrible, hope requires agency. It demands that you see yourself not as an audience member watching history happen, but as a participant in it, an active participant in it. Think about the distinction for a moment. Are you optimistic or are you hopeful? Because that choice, the difference, determines whether you are a bystander or you are a builder. Which brings me to where we are right now, at this moment today, this historical intersection we all find ourselves in. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, as well as humanity. We're all there at that intersection. One of those moments that we're all faced with. And the question is, what are we doing about it? Are we just being optimistic, confident that someone smarter, someone with more power, someone else will fix what is broken? Or are we driven by hope, the kind of hope that can pull us towards an era where we can barely imagine because we're actually willing to work? And so here's the deeper question, and it cuts way beyond politics. Are we thinking only about our own survival, or are we thinking about generations ahead? What kind of ancestors are we going to be? Because future generations are going to look back at this time. They're going to be looking at us, at our choices, our courage or lack of it. And they're going to want to know, were we awake or were we asleep? Did we do something about it? Or did we just wait optimistically for someone else? So there's this ancient Jewish concept I want to share with you. It's midor ledor, from generation to generation. But here's what it actually demands. It demands that we cannot pass forward what we haven't grasped. What are you actually projecting or handing off from generation to generation? You can't throw an anchor into a future if you're not conscious enough to see where you're standing right now. The Jewish story, our history, the journey that has brought us to this point in time, I think offers us kind of a case study, showing us what hope can look like across a millennia. You know, in Israel, the hope, Hatikva, is actually the national anthem. never losing hope, never giving up. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of anchors that were thrown by the Jewish people for the last thousands of years. Number 1 is Amcha, Amiut, or also known as Jewish peoplehood. This crazy idea that a scattered people over 2,000 years in exile could maintain a connection across continents and centuries through active choice, not passive drift. Keeping in mind there was no technology, no WhatsApp groups, or email distribution, right? That's an anchor. That's an anchor that you throw into the imaginary future. The second pillar I want to share with you is Zionism. Herzl threw a major anchor toward a future most people considered pure fantasy. When he joined or brought together Jewish leaders from around the world at the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland in 1896, and he said, "I have an idea, let's go home," they laughed. And then generations organized. They built, and they all pulled themselves towards that anchor thrown by Herzl. And now I want to talk about number 3, this third pillar, modern Israel, the nation state of Israel, the return, the decolonization of Israel. Living proof that democracy can thrive under pressure, that innovation creates more security than walls ever could, and that a people who are scattered nonetheless across the 4 corners of the world can come together to create a society that can serve as a model, especially in this part of the world where we are surrounded by dictatorships, theocracies, and third world living standards. These 3 anchors I just mentioned work together. It's where ancient wisdom meets modern innovation. Particular identity meets universal values. And here's what they demonstrate. Even in small communities, when they are animated by the right values, even those small communities can contribute enormously to human progress. Persecution can generate compassion. Exile can become innovation, and the threat of extinction can transform into human flourishing. So what does hope actually require of us today? Not necessarily inspiration nor good intentions. Hope requires consciousness. The disciplined practice of staying awake when it's so much easier to sleepwalk through life. The ability to remove the distractions, the peels, the banana peels, the orange peels, the screens that we put up that don't allow us to see what is real, what is true. And most people will encounter their moment to matter, but most will miss it. Every one of us will have an opportunity to recognize that we stand at this intersection, but not everyone is going to wake up to it and do something about it. It's not because they lack courage, perhaps, but most probably, as I shared about those distractions, it's because they're distracted, because they might be tired, or perhaps they haven't cultivated the awareness to recognize significance when it shows up. So let's get practical. What does conscious hope actually look like? Well, visit Israel. Bring your children. Stand in the actual place where history took place and ask yourself, what does it mean that this exists? What does it mean to my existence? And what does this space here in Israel have to do with continuity? Volunteer. Volunteer for causes that are aligned with your deepest values. Say yes when you first want to say no. Practice ancestral imagination. Ask yourself, what would my great-grandparents want me to do with the freedom they died longing for? For those of us who might be grandchildren or children of Holocaust survivors, or who have ancestors who were, chased out of Russia or former Soviet Union countries, or even the Spanish Inquisition of 1492, what would they have expected of us? What was their life like? And how do we stand atop their shoulders to be able to see even further ahead into the future? Next, articulate a vision. What does the future you're pulling toward actually look like? Let's talk about 2048. Not too far from now. Describe it. What does that period of time look like? Write it down. Keep a journal. Imagine what your future can hold. Manifest your future. Choose signal over noise. Scrolling through news about Israel is easier than booking tickets there or to here. Having opinions about Jewish continuity is easier than teaching your children Hebrew. Anxiety about the future is easier than throwing your anchor into it. Hope requires not just clearing space in your life, but filling it with purpose. And so we have to listen, and listen carefully. Our ancestors, they could only dream of living in this moment in time, of Jewish sovereignty, of a state where Jews can go visit, let alone live. They prayed for Jerusalem while living in exile. By the rivers of Babylon, they wept when they remembered Zion. And they threw their anchor into a future they would never end up seeing. And now it's our turn. We live the life they've only dreamt of. And the question is, are we using our vantage point atop the shoulders of our ancestors to see even further ahead? Or are we too distracted with things that we think are important to know exactly where we're standing? Future generations will judge us by what we did with this extraordinary moment. They will ask, were you conscious? Were you hopeful? Did you throw your anchor forward? And the anchors are there. Peoplehood, Zion, the democratic nation state of Israel. It's all here. But you can only grab the rope if your hands are free from all those distractions, all those things that are meaningless. So ask yourself, what distractions am I clutching to? What comfortable narratives am I hiding behind? What opportunities to matter have I already let slip by? And then ask yourself an even harder question. What will I do this week, not someday, this week, to live as if the future depends on people like me choosing to be awake? So here's the truth in Grossman's words. He understood that the very act of throwing the anchor, the ability to imagine beyond, in his words, the tangible and arbitrary circumstances, proves that somewhere in your soul there is still hope. There is still one place that you are free. And that free place is where hope exists. That's where you long to decide what kind of an ancestor you're going to be. Our ancestors are watching. The future is waiting. Am Yisrael Chai is not just a slogan, it's a way of life. It's the choice to remain conscious, to stay hopeful, to keep pulling. The anchor has been thrown, and now it's our turn to pull. My hope, my active participation in this hope, is to ensure that every single one of us forges our link to the chain of continuity from generation to generation, midor ledor, and that our children can look at us as role models, knowing that we've done and continue to do all we are supposed to do as members of this extraordinary tribe. And this is a lesson not just for the Jewish people, but for all of humanity, for each and every one of us to think about. Who are we in the grand scheme of things, and what do we leave behind? What will be your legacy? Until then, looking forward to continuing our conversation in next week's episode. Love and light from Israel. Peace out.